Hey guys, it's Anna Hendryx, and I'm presenting my independent study project on advanced 3D printing for my last studio project, actually, which was a bridge. And the form was inspired by origami, and that's nothing that I could really build with my own hands. And so that's where Grasshopper kind of came into play. I didn't really have any background knowledge of it, but I was very curious about the program in general and how it enables you to customize the process, customize what you're designing. And so with this project, when we were trying to ask ourselves what we were interested in, I thought that taking Grasshopper and actually applying it to 3D printing would be really awesome. So for the first case study that I am presenting is a project in France, and so this was the first 3D printed house printed and also lived in. It was a really great response to affordability, faster construction, and sustainability as well, using natural materials. The project overall ended up being zero waste, which obviously is a great thing for sustainability. And so with the 3D printing process, it ends up being faster in construction than typical construction methods, which inevitably cuts the cost of living of buying the house for the homeowners. And so in that sense, it's really awesome. And then also they were able to customize the way in which this was printed. In this short clip, you can see how it's printed, and it's pretty much creating exterior framing. And then what they do on the outside is they smooth it out post printing, and then the inside they fill with concrete, which ends up being the structure. So in that sense, the team was able to customize the technology that they were using, which enabled them to enhance kind of the form that they were desiring, but also respond to things like affordable housing, and with that cutting cost of construction, making it affordable for the people who are living in there. The next project that I have to show is called Tecla, and this is a really cool project. It's a prototype for a building habitat. It's a response to sustainability. They use natural materials, like I stated before with the project in France. The construction is just much faster because it's not dependent on labor. It's dependent on a machine, which can be programmed to kind of print however fast is desired or necessary. And so this video is showing just the speed at which, you don't really see a whole lot of people actively on site just keeping track and making sure that the printer is printing what it's supposed to be printing. This is just a really great response to sustainability, using natural materials, affordability, because the process is just naturally faster. And it also, 3D printing, you can see here, doesn't take away from the aesthetics of building and design. It's actually enhancing it. So the abilities that you have with 3D printing and programming and scripting, you're able to create forms that otherwise, typical construction might not allow. And this last project is called Marcia. The project, they're using NASA grade technology, so a space factory is responding to the need for housing on Mars. And so what they do with this technology, they use locally sourced materials on Mars. The technology is sent before the inhabitants. So it's in that sense, it's efficient because the technology goes before, builds the buildings that these people are going to be living in. By using in situ resource utilization technologies, they are able to decrease the cost of what it might be to transport all these materials from Earth to Mars. Even with this futuristic technology, we're able to see the benefits of sustainability by using locally sourced materials to construct buildings, and also decreasing the cost of transportation, which would be really expensive to transport materials from Earth to Mars. And so my thesis aims to discover 3D printing as a primary method for building construction and prototyping, as a way to reduce waste, cut cost of transportation, which serve to create aesthetic, sustainable, and affordable housing. And so with my project, I did decide to learn more about the 3D printing process and the technology behind it, how to customize data in which allows me to control the way things are printed, and discover the real world applications of what it might be to save time and money. And time is money, right? So the book that I used to help my process was Advanced 3D Printing with Grasshopper. And so this kind of just started me from ground zero. I learned how to draw lines with points that I create, and you can see how many components are involved in just extracting the data for creating, a square. And so it's just really wild to see and learn the way in which you can use Grasshopper as a way to customize the 3D printing process. So basically the process was slower because since I did start from scratch, the printing process in general failed a few times before printing successfully. This next slide, I'm showing kind of a video of my third failed attempt at printing. So the walls were supposed to be thicker. You can see pretty much right through. You can see the perforation through the walls, which is not supposed to happen. And I'm just showing how, while it did fail, later you'll see how I was able to even use this as something useful. So I was still trying to make it a sustainable project, even though, naturally using plastic material isn't very sustainable. So this next slide is just showing the various iterations that I had to go through, the various attempts that I had to make in order to reach the final project, which is the last image on this slide. And you can see just all the data that's involved in creating this simple planter. But yeah, it was incredible to see how many components went into this design, and the cool thing was to see how customizable 3D printing is when you're using a program such as Grasshopper. If I, in this next slide, took one string and then altered it ever so slightly by changing a couple numbers, the planter would have taken a completely different pattern. And so in that way, it's really incredible, because using like scripting enables you to create things that, in the time it would take to do by hand, 3D printing and using things like Grasshopper allows you to do it faster and more efficiently. And so again, time is money, and so it ends up being more affordable. Overall, I've discovered that 3D printing is a great tool for creating a planter, but even more, while there was a lot of work that went into customizing the code up front, it did significantly cut the physical building of the model, which, if taken in terms of model building for studio projects, means a lot considering how much time it would take to build a model with basswood. Taken in terms of the real world, cutting construction time means cutting cost of building, making 3D printing a great solution for affordable housing. So already I saw the benefits of how 3D printing cuts the time of production. Additionally, while the technology and materials nor scale was accessible to me for this project, I also understood the benefit of 3D printing as a solution to sustainability. While my corrupt attempts were inherently wasteful, not to mention the fact that I used a plastic, I was able to turn 3 of my failed attempts into useful projects, such as a cup holder and just something to hold little items. And finally, as 3D printing becomes more and more accessible, the technology will become more affordable and mainstream, allowing for all these benefits of 3D printing and construction to be activated. Thank you.